You're listening to John Guy Saves the World in 30 Minutes. I'm John Guy, and we are being brought to you courtesy of the Mancini Stables podcast group. And I'm very happy to join every one of you tonight as we debut Solving the World. Now, the world's problems, at least. Here's the deal. What we're going to be doing is basically in 25 minutes, we're going to solve a global problem. And you say to yourself, that can't be done. Listen, there are 7.7 billion people on this rock that we call planet Earth. And of those 7.7 billion people, some of them are really smart. And many of them have common sense. And if you think about it, in the last 3,000 years, we've made considerable progress. Now, that being said, we've put a man on the moon. We've eradicated diseases. We've been technologically superior to any other life form. And so I started thinking, we've got global problems. The global problems, we're going to cover one each Wednesday night. And in a course of about 30 minutes, we're going to come up with a solution because we're smart. We have common sense. The call-in number for this show is 720-707-2699. And then once you call that number, they're going to ask you for a code, which, I don't know, we're going to make this easier as time moves on. But the code is 144-116-652, and then the pound sign. Now, let's go over some basic rules. Number one, this isn't a political show. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican or a communist. I don't care. I don't care if you're conservative or liberal, although I will say that that is going to cloud your input somewhat, and that's okay, because we're going to be civil on this show, and we're going to actually utilize each other's common sense and additions to my plan or subtractions, and we're going to come up with a solution. This is the way it should be. Now, every week we're going to discuss a problem. This week, as an example, we're going to be talking about the food problem on planet Earth. We're going to be also talking in coming weeks about crime, the use of guns, climate change, global warming, lack of water, you name it. We're going to end up talking about it, and we're going to end up solving the problem. Sort of, I guess. Anyway, that's how we're going to be doing it. Let's start. I'm hoping some people will call in. I know it's complicated, but give us a call at 720-707-2699. And then when you call in, enter the show code, which is 144-116-652, and the pound sign. And feel free to send emails, texts, various messages to me throughout the week. That's fine. I will use your ideas in upcoming shows. Now, we've gone over the fact that there are 7.7 billion people on this planet. Now, in order to solve the food problem, well, let's go back to Sam Kinison, the late comedian who was very profane and very intelligent, used to be a tent evangelist before he got into comedy. He solved the world hunger situation thusly. He said, stop sending them food. Stop sending them money. Instead, send them U-Haul trucks. Get there with the U-Haul truck and get them all together and say, hey, you live in a desert. Nothing will grow in a desert. Nothing will ever grow in the desert. So get your belongings, put them in the U-Haul truck, and we're going to take you to where the food is. Now, as great a routine as Sam had in that, it's funny because, as you well know, it's true. Of those 7.7 billion people on planet Earth, 1 billion of them live in a desert. 1 out of every 6 people on this rock lives in a desert. So, what are we going to do about that? Because really, if you think about it, planet Earth, only 33% of the surface is soil and land. The other 2/3 is water. Now, you can grow food in water, but it's a lot easier growing it in soil. Now, the land mass of the 33%, what happens is, of that percentage, 29% of the land is desert. Basically, 1/3 of the Earth's total land mass, close to, is desert, and nothing will grow, usually in desert regions. So what are we going to do about this? Well, I have a plan, and it goes sort of with Sam Kinison. We as Americans can solve the global food problem all by ourselves. We can. We don't want to, but we can. Now, why wouldn't we want to share? Well, actually, we would want to share with the other civilized countries. That obviously is the way to go. But if we wanted to solve it all by ourselves, we could take those billion people that live in a desert, and we can move them to where the food is. Now, I've done some research. And the research I've done is that the least populated state per square mile in the United States is Alaska. But Alaska is not known for its its lengthy growing seasons, and quite honestly, a lot of it is under ice. So, what's number two? Well, the second least densely populated state in the United States is Wyoming. They only have 6 people for every square mile. So you've got to ask yourself, 6 people, that's pretty sparse. What would be, you don't want to jam that billion people into, a county or something. You don't want it that dense. How dense do you want those 1 billion people who can't grow anything because they live in a desert? Well, you could actually move them all to Wyoming and Montana. Those are the 2 states, and they are, by the way, joined together. But you don't want to put like New York City into those states. No, that's too crowded. I looked at Phoenix, and I thought to myself, wait a minute. Phoenix is only 57th in the country in population density, which, I don't know. I live outside of Phoenix, and I consider Phoenix to be pretty damn crowded. The infrastructure is not built for the millions of people that call the Valley of the Sun home. And secondly, Phoenix is in a desert. And it is not known for its agricultural output. It really isn't. So let's find a place that isn't like, I don't know, New York City or something, or Phoenix. Because in Phoenix, our density is 3,165 people per square mile. That's pretty crowded. And yet that is only 57th on the list. So let's make it a little less dense. Let's say we're not going to use Phoenix as a role model. We're going to use Pittsburgh. Now, I know that's Mark Mancini's love child city. He loves Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh is not as dense as Phoenix. Certainly not as dense as New York, Chicago, or LA. So, if you took those billion people and you put them in Wyoming and Montana, and I've lived in Montana, and you can grow things in Wyoming and Montana, and you give them the same density that Pittsburgh has. Come on, we love Pittsburgh. You would have Wyoming and Montana looking like one gigantic Pittsburgh. But guess what? 1 billion people could live in those 2 states. They could grow food in those 2 states. They're not covered by ice. They're not uninhabitable or untillable, for that matter. Those 2 states we could use if we wanted to put all billion hungry people there. Now, let's not put 1 billion people into Wyoming and Montana. Let's split it with the rest of the civilized world. Let's go half and half, maybe. And then all of a sudden, it's not that heavily populated. It's more, it's a more regional approach. We have the wealth in this world. We have the landmass in this world to solve the problem of world hunger tomorrow. We just don't do it. We get complicated. Oh, the Republicans and the Democrats, they're fighting over there. And the socialists and the communists, they're fighting over here. And the religions are fighting, the races are fighting, everyone is fighting. And so we can't just take a moment and inhale and exhale and solve a problem when we're fighting amongst ourselves. That's where I come in. That's where this show comes in. What we're trying to do is very simple. Cut out the BS. Cut out the hatred. We'll deal with that some other week. And figure out a solution to a problem. That's all we're looking at doing. Sam Kinison was right. Put your stuff in a U-Haul and we will take you to where the food is. You can do an awful lot in deserts, surprisingly, since I live in one in Arizona. Yuma County, which is the hottest county probably in the entire state, produces 80% of the lettuce that you get in the winter in America. 80%. One county in the desert bordering Mexico is producing 80% of all the lettuce that you eat during the winter. So it can be done. So if you're living in Pittsburgh, you're eating probably Yuma County lettuce. And if not Yuma County, then Southern California or Mexico. All of whom live in a desert area. And yet they are producing your lettuce, your carrots, your kale, all of your green leafy vegetables. That's what they grow in the desert in the Southwest. Now, again, since I live in a desert, we also grow shrimp. We grow tilapia. We have tilapia farms, which I don't know. Personally, I don't even consider them a fish. But anyway, we grow genetically engineer tilapia. We also have shrimp farms in the desert. And we can produce some pretty good sizable shrimp out in the desert by, say, Gila Bend. They have shrimp farms out there. So deserts can be turned into a food sustaining area. We just have to get off our asses and put our money where our mouths are and solve the problem. It's really not as hard as everybody makes it to be. There should be plenty of food to go around. There should not be any hungry children going to bed anywhere. What the heck is that? And look at how many kids in America don't have proper nutrients, proper amounts of food. Now, I once did a sermon in a church, believe it or not. My pants did not catch on fire. There was no lightning bolt. But I was talking about Warren Buffett. And everybody says, oh my God, what a philanthropic fellow Warren Buffett is. He gives money to universities and libraries and medical research centers, and he gives a lot of money. Lots. But I once calculated how much of his wealth he was actually donating to society. And surprisingly enough, it was not 10%. It was more like 3%. Warren Buffett was giving 3% of his worth to charity, to research. And you say to yourself, well, that's a lot of money. Yeah, it is. But what are we doing with the other 97%? I mean, couldn't he have given 6%? He'd still have billions of dollars, for God's sakes. How about 10%? That's what a lot of people tithe in church, 10%. And yet, Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett, the richest people in our country do not give 10% to charity. They give more in the neighborhood of 2 to 5%. And it got me thinking, oh my God, overnight, the richest people in America, probably, let's go 6. The 6 richest people in America overnight could solve the housing problem in this country. We would have no homeless. And they could do it overnight, literally overnight. Go buy motels, go buy condos, who cares? These people have enough money to solve the problem overnight. And yet they don't. And they don't because we're fighting. We can't get anything done. Religions fight. Races fight. Political parties fight. We can't get things done because we're fighting. Next week, now that we've solved the global epidemic of hunger by growing more food, by moving people out of the desert in U-Haul trucks, courtesy of Sam Kinison, and we're moving them to where the food is, well, we've solved that problem, right? Next week, we're going to solve the problem of gun violence in this country. And we're going to do it in 30 minutes or less. Because next week's show, we're going to dissect it. We're not going to be Michael Moore. We're not going to be confronting the NRA. No. We're going to be smart about this. We're going to use common sense in our brains. And I'm willing to bet next week, 30 minutes, we'll solve the gun problem here in the United States. Of course, it's not going to be implemented, but you've got to start somewhere. And this is where we start. I'm John Guy. You've been listening to John Guy Saves the World in 30 minutes. That's going to wrap up our show for this week. I'm hoping to see you all next Wednesday night, same time, same station, and we're going to solve another global problem. Good night, everyone. Have a good week.